I am thrilled to be here this morning. I'm looking out over some future Bluffton High School Tigers, and I'm excited about that. If you don't live in Bluffton, come on over anyway. We'll take you. So I'm excited to see that. This week I had an opportunity to come out. I don't know if you saw a guy sitting on a picnic table and watching you from the distance. That was me, so hopefully I didn't scare you. And I was impressed with what I saw. I really saw some cool things. I saw you guys work on some teamwork skills, and I saw you guys work on some things that were pretty tough. You had to overcome some challenges. And I saw you guys just work together, and I saw you work together as a team as things went and progressed. And I want you to know I was impressed. I really was. I'm impressed by you, and I'm impressed that Bluffton, the city of Bluffton, has police officers who care enough to spend time with you. Amen. This is a very special community. So when I asked the question, Chief Schaefer asked the question, are you tough enough? Are you tough enough? You know, some of us come from a background of when you think, is someone tough enough? Do they think of some big old burly guy with Popeye? You guys know Popeye the Sailor Man?
I do.
All right, know him a little bit? Got these big old, he's kind of like Mayor Ted Ellis. Kind of looks like him. Really buff, really tough guy. And some guy who can do that, and just some guy who can beat up anybody on a whim for any reason. Unfortunately, sometimes our society thinks that's a tough guy. Or sometimes they think about a guy who doesn't need anyone else, who's a loner, the Lone Ranger, who can take any challenge head on and never loses. Sometimes people think of that as a tough guy. Sometimes people think of a tough guy who won't take anything from anybody, and people are afraid of him. Unfortunately, that's what our society, that's what some students in my high school think. That's what being tough is. So when I think of being tough enough, I think of three things. Three things I think about. You ready for this? Three things I think about if you're tough enough. I think of marshmallows, a penguin, and a loser. That's what I think of when I think is someone tough enough. Marshmallows, penguin, and a loser. I know, Mr. Baker, you've lost your mind. I've been told that before. But I'd like to share with you why. There was a study done about 40 years ago to some students a little bit younger than you. These students, children, were 5 and 6 year olds. Okay? And they took 600 of them over a period of time, one at a time, put them in a room by themselves. And a person would come in and say, if I may, here's a marshmallow. I'm going to give it to you in your hand, and I'm going to leave the room for 15 minutes. 15 minutes. You have to picture, here's a 5 or 6 year old, all right? So you got to use your imagination. Don't act like one. And the person said, 15 minutes, I'm going to leave the room. If you don't eat that marshmallow, and you're going to be here by yourself, no one's going to be here with you, 15 minutes, I'm going to come back, and if you haven't eaten it, I'm going to give you a second marshmallow. If I come back, and you've eaten a marshmallow, I'm not going to give you another one. That's your treat. That study was done. And here's what they found out. No, it's been outside, and yeah, I kind of. Here's what they found. You would be amazed what they found. Out of 600 children, 400 couldn't wait. 400 children ate the marshmallow and couldn't wait 15 minutes where they would get 2 marshmallows. 200 had, and here's the word, self-discipline to wait for 15 minutes. And their reward was they got another marshmallow. They doubled the marshmallows they had. So instead of eating one, they got to eat 2. What was the price they had to pay? Waiting 15 minutes and not eating. 200 out of 600 could do it. I used to be a math teacher. That's 1/3. That's 33%. That's not a lot. So you say, okay, that's great, Mr. Baker. So what? That's a great story about a marshmallow. They went back 20 years after this study, found them all, because that was part of the study. You know what they found out? The 200 who waited and had the self-discipline to wait for that second marshmallow, they all performed well in school. They performed well in college. They had great jobs. They were successful, and they contributed to their community. The 400 who did not wait, they were still good people, but they didn't have the success that the 200 people had who waited. Now, the moral of the lesson there is not, don't eat marshmallows for 15 minutes. All right? The moral of that story is, self-discipline is a great tool that will get you far in life. And I believe, from what I witnessed this week, these fine men and women were teaching you that this week, and you learned it very well. So remember, self-discipline is really someone who's tough enough. Marshmallow! Penguin? There's a certain penguin, not this guy, in Australia, and they're flightless, can't fly. And if they fly, they can't fly very far. They're flightless. And they're in Australia, and their predator is the fox. And again, some scientists started studying them because they found out this guy, this flightless penguin, against a fox will lose about 10 times out of 10. How does this penguin survive in the wild? How does this penguin make it? Here's what they found. They watched him, and it was amazing what he did. You know what they do every morning? Every morning, they wait for each other. They will all huddle together, shoulder to shoulder. They will march down to the ocean. They will get their food for the day. They will all swim. Foxes don't like that. They'll swim and get their food. They'll all wait for everyone to finish, and they will march back to their homes together right by a fox who's watching them. And as long as they stay together as a team, they will be safe. And the study found, once this little penguin thought, I'm tough enough to go off and do what, I'll stick around a little longer and get some more food. I don't need these other people. He became fox dinner. They found teamwork and staying together as a team, you are more successful than being on your own. There's a quote that I love. If you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. The penguins of Australia have found that secret. And I think people who are really tough know that same secret. Teamwork, if you come to Bluffton High School, the first day of school with my teachers, I'm going to tell them the same thing I'm going to tell you. Because we can't be successful in anything if we're not a team. And I'm going to tell them, so you get to hear it here first. Teamwork is the belief that nobody can get there unless everybody gets there. So teamwork is essential to being tough enough. So if you really want to be tough enough, self-discipline, teamwork, and be a loser. Be a loser! See this picture right here? Represents what happened back in 1968, Summer Olympics, 1968. Just so you know, Mayor Ted Ellis had his 50th birthday in 1968. 1968 Summer Olympics. What happened that day will never be forgotten by everyone who witnessed it. Marathon. You guys know the marathon? It's about 26 miles of running. Yeah, it's hard for me to drive 26 miles without getting tired. They run 26 miles. It's an Olympic event. And there was this runner from Tanzania. It's a country who participates in the Olympics. Tanzania. Then all of a sudden the race was over and this runner wasn't there. All the runners finished. No runner from Tanzania. So everyone waited and waited and waited for 2 hours. Now back in 1968, they didn't have quite the coverage and technology we have today. Didn't really know what happened to that runner. 2 hours later, the runner from Tanzania came into the stadium limping, dragging, dirty, sweaty, basically walked across the finish line. He had injured himself during the race, and he had to limp to finish the race. When he came in, you know what the stadium did of those who were still left? Gave him a standing ovation. Afterwards, he was asked, why in the world did you finish? Why didn't you just quit? No one would have blamed you. No one would have even really known if you just would have quit, because in injury, you're allowed to quit. And you know what he said? Listen to this quote. My country didn't send me 7,000 miles to start the race. They sent me 7,000 miles to finish the race. That's tough enough. Tough enough isn't starting something. Tough enough isn't trying something. Tough enough is finishing what you started. This runner in 1968 will forever be remembered as the loser who was tough enough to finish. And you know what? That runner is remembered more than the person who won, because he had the guts to finish. It's a story about never quitting. So, are you tough enough? Are you tough enough? Are you tough enough to be a marshmallow and a penguin and a loser? Because society today, through our movies and everything else, is giving you the wrong message of what tough enough really is. Tough enough is, do you have the self-discipline to wait and do the right thing? Are you tough enough that you believe being part of a team is greater than going alone? And are you tough enough to have the toughness to never quit to finish what you started? Really, the question is, are you tough enough to have the courage to do these things when many people don't? I want you to know I am very proud of you. I am very proud of you. I am very proud that you got up in the summer and for 5 days went through things that most people don't want to be a part of. That says something about your character. So I want you to know that I'm proud of you, and that these fine people this week taught you some lessons on how to be a better person. I pray you're up to the challenge. Congratulations.